Hello listeners, this is Kat and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. Today I'll be doing a Q&A session answering a bunch of the questions that you all had put together months ago when I said, hey, I'm looking to do another Q&A session. What do you guys have for me? So you all put together a ton of things and I'm going to do my best to answer a good bit of them today. And if you have more, maybe we'll do another one in the future. So again, I'm Kat, and a lot of people ask for personal questions about me, so I'll answer some of the ones I was willing to. I'm 26 years old, and one of the big ones I was asked was, how did you decide to do Podfics? Like, why did you get into it? Which I've talked a little bit about before, but I just stumbled into it when I realized there wasn't a podfic out there for the essay writing competition, which, to be honest, at the time was a fic that I had been obsessed with, just a one shot, and something I thought deserved a podfic. I just went and decided to make one on a whim. So people started subscribing pretty much right away, which was a shock to me, and I had a lot of fun with it, so I just never stopped. Okay, now another big question I got was, do you have a job or do you only do podfics? Which I guess reasonable. A while back there I was doing them pretty often, but I am a full-time therapist. I do have a job, so when I struggle with upload schedules and maybe you see me primarily uploading on weekends or late at night, it's because I do have a full-time job that I work, and so that's my primary focus, and I do this when I can because this is a huge passion of mine. But I do, like I said, yeah, I do have a job. A lot of people also asked me, what are your thoughts on My Hero Academia ending? And like many, I would say that I'm in the side of I wish it wasn't ending, right? That it wasn't over. You know, I know the anime is still going to be going on, but I just, I wish we would get a confirmation about the Vigilante series. That, in my opinion, would be really cool to see. I'm a huge fan of My Hero Academia, as you all can probably tell at this point. So knowing that something is coming to an end is bittersweet. I think there's a lot of vision that Horikoshi has had in his development of this series, and so I have a lot of respect, for the work that he's putting out and the ending that he's putting together. And I know that fanfic authors are going to create their own endings or keep things going regardless. So I wouldn't see it as the end. I would see it more as like an opportunity for new ideas and new potential. Now, kind of to the same token, several have asked me if I intend to stop making My Hero Academia podfics now that the show and the manga are ending. No, that is not the case. Do not think that. I have started this channel with My Hero Academia. I intend to keep going with My Hero Academia. There's no end in sight when it comes to the surplus of fics that are out there. I love reading them, and I love when you all make recommendations and provide me new ones that I can find. So it's really, there's no intent to end it just because the ending's out there. And like I said before, there's this potential that exists now for alternate endings and new material to be developed. And so I'm really excited to see what happens there, and hopefully podfix some of those fics as well. I do like other fandoms though, and so I've started making small baby steps into branching out into some other ones, like the Hunter x Hunter fic I did here recently. So I will start to implement some new fandoms to branch into, but again, that does not mean that My Hero Academia fanfics and podfics on this channel are going anywhere. Now, let's talk about my favorite tropes, AUs, themes for My Hero Academia, because that was another area people were curious about as well. I made a list. It's not in any particular order, I don't really feel. It's just a culmination of the things that I really like to read and enjoy when it comes to My Hero. I will preface by stating that a lot of the fics I read are Izuku-centric, which you can probably tell from being on this channel. But I also like shifting POVs, and I like where there's other fics that are different types of centric as well. I've read Aizawa-centric fics. I've also read fics where Bakugo is centric, or fics that don't even contain Izuku. So it doesn't mean I won't read others. It's just when it comes to podficking and when it comes to my personal preferences, I tend to favor Izuku-centric. All right, so this list, I'm going to start out with quirkless Izuku and badass Izuku fics because I like when those go hand in hand. I like where he stays quirkless and he remains a badass in some aspect, right? The perseverance component to remaining quirkless. whether that's the couple of paths he can take, one of which becoming a hero in a society that says you can't, persevering regardless, or becoming a vigilante, kind of to the same token, trying to become a hero despite society saying it you can't. And then also the ones where Izuku becomes a villain to try to reform society in some aspect because he was persecuted for something he couldn't control. So all those avenues, right? All of them I think kind of fall under that umbrella of a quirkless Izuku, that quirkless component sparking each of them. So I like those types of tropes a lot. I also really enjoy League of Villains found family fics. Some really good examples of ones that I like are like Tea in a Bar, or Reformation, I think is a good example. It has some really cool components to it as well. And then also Little Izuku in the League of Villains, which was one that I got to podfic on this channel. I also really like Dad Zawa and Dad Mike. Those tend to go hand in hand for me, but I have a little bit more of a, like, don't get me wrong, I love Mike, all right? Love present Mike. However, Dad's always got a special place. There's just something about it. It's just a great mentorship and parental aspect and found family trope that it covers everything for me. I really like those. And I think it's partially because when I started reading My Hero Academia fanfics, I started off falling into like the vigilante fics where Aizawa was the underground hero that kind of helps Izuku. So I really like those components. I do like Dad Might, to kind of move on to the next one, occasionally. Now, this isn't to say that I dislike Dad Might. All right, I love All Might as a character. I think he has the potential to be a really good mentor, and there's a really good relationship between him and Izuku. Fics like State of Mind is a really good example of times where I really enjoy reading Dad Might. However, I really like All Might bashing fics a lot. I enjoy them. I like when All Might gets consequences for some aspect if he fails in some way. I think there's a lot of things throughout the actual canon material itself where All Might could have potentially done better with Izuku or been more protective. So I like either seeing him take those steps or seeing him get consequences for not. Either or. Which leads me kind of into Bakugo getting consequences. That shows up a lot in the fics that I read. I really like just that term of consequences, right? Whether that be reform in some way or things he needs to do, but I like that component. Again, though, similar to All Might, right? I like this concept of them getting consequences, potentially bashing, if I feel like it's necessary. If they stay the same or even are worse than they are in canon, right, with their actions or the things that they do, I want there to be morality that takes place and actual consequences for those actions. Now, on the other side of that, right, if Bakugo's character completely changes from the start, or he stays Izuku's friend and he doesn't do a lot of the things that he did, right, becoming a bully and harming him, right, pushing him down in society, then those consequences aren't necessary because he's a different characterization. I just think that the consequences have to fit, right? They need to exist. And oftentimes they're a precipice for him to seek out reform and change or redemption. So I really like when that takes place in a fic as well. Next up, I had Mentor Nezu fics, or Genius Izuku fics, because those tend to go hand in hand as well. And I really like Support Course Izuku because oftentimes those fics showcase his genius. All of these, though, tend to highlight in on his hero analysis notebooks and the genius that exists there and his ability to analyze quirks. I love Analyst Izuku, so when those all tie together, I'm a happy person. I also really like, I already mentioned the villain Izuku fics, but when he is actually a fake villain, right? He's going in to maybe infiltrate the League of Villains or pretends to go against Hero Society, and he's actually a hero the whole time, or he's trying to take them down from the inside. So those types of fake villain fics I think are really, really special. And then the last couple ones I put down are time travel, because I think they open up a realm of possibilities when it comes to AUs and different things that can occur, but also de-aging fics, because I think those types of fics can especially highlight on traumas or relationships and things like that that maybe you wouldn't normally see. So there's some really great aspects that come out of de-aging fics as well. Now, moving on from tropes and AUs and things along those lines, another question I was typically asked is, what types of ships do you like? What are your favorite ships? Do you have a favorite one? I don't have one favorite, I will say that. I have a list of ones that I like, but I'm a multi-shipper, so, you know, I'll read just about anything. I really like Totodeku and Shindeku. They're probably tied for me towards the top, especially Toto Shindeku. I'm a poly shipper as well, so I really like those dynamics. I think that there's a lot of really good fics, like State of Mind, where Todoroki and Izuku have shared trauma histories, or the same goes for Shinso and Izuku, and as well for Toto Shindeku. I think that all three of those characters can have some really good parallels or some really good trauma bonding moments, and so that's something I really enjoy. I also really like Bakudeku. I have always liked them. I think that that was how I started into this fandom too. The first fic I read, if I remember correctly, was The Way You Used to Do, and I found it. It wasn't the first fanfic I ever read, but it was the first fanfic I read for My Hero, and I hadn't actually watched the show yet or read the manga or anything at all, so it was the first exposure I really had to the series, and it was such a slow burn, but the character development was so good. So I really like Bakudeku. I was a sucker for that for a long time too, and it's just never really gone away. I like Monodeku, Monoma and Izuku. I'm a huge fan of the rare pairs, and I think that there's some really cool components to that pairing as well. I'm creating another call to action for writers to please write and ship them. Please give me some more content. I'm begging. The same thing goes for Rody-Deku. I really like Rody-Deku as well. And Eraser Mike, of course, which takes place in a majority of the fics I read. And I also really like Dobby Hawks, or Hot Wings, if that's your preference when it comes to a ship name. I think, though, that fics like time travel fics are really cool because they can open up a whole possibility of different pairings that maybe you wouldn't have thought of before. So I really will say I'm a multi-shipper. I will read just about anything. I won't avoid fics because of a particular pairing. The only pairing I'm not a huge fan of, like I'll actually verbalize I'm not a huge fan of, is Izuku and Ochako, and the only reason for that isn't so much because of the characterization or anything. It's more because it doesn't really stray from canon material, and I'm more of a fan of like AUs and changes. So I read them from time to time, but it's not my personal preference. But again, I'll still read them. Okay, time for favorite characters, because I've already talked about tropes and ships, so you probably have a good idea of some of the ones I'm going to mention already, but I'll go through the list regardless. Izuku's my number one. I'm not even going to try to lie or debate or say that somebody else is my number one right now. Izuku's number one. The rest vary based off of the fics and based off of how I'm feeling, and I love all of these characters, but Izuku definitely I love the most. Aizawa, Todoroki, Shinso, Present Mike. I mean, look at the channel, the logo, the name. Put your hands up, Podfics. Inspired. I love Bakugo as well. Rody, I just don't think that one movie was enough. Let's get some more content of Rody out there. Again, the call to action for people to write, you know, these pairings for some of my smaller rare pairs. Shigaraki is probably one of my favorites too. I love voicing Shigaraki. It's probably my favorite voice to do out of all of them. I really like Dobby too, mainly because of the backstory. I love the Todoroki family lore. I think it just never fails when it comes to fanfics. I also really enjoy Nezu. Again, another one that I enjoy to voice. I think Nezu's voice is probably up there with Shigaraki's. They're probably two of my favorites. I have the most fun, I think, with Nezu's. Shigaraki's is just really cool to do, but Nezu is just enjoyable. Like I have a blast every time I get the chance to do that. And then also Monoma, I find him absolutely hilarious. I've always thought so, even since like Sports Festival and him calling out Class A for getting attacked by villains. Like ever since then, I thought he was hilarious. And then Hatsume, I think she's a hilarious, crazy inventor genius. So, need I say more? And also Tokiyami. I think Tokiyami deserves to be on the list too. Revelry in the dark, my friends. Okay, so the actual voices, doing the voices is asked about too. So let's talk a little bit about it. I'm not a professional voice actor, so please don't think that, right? But when I first started doing these, I kind of tried to mentally match them to the English dub version, and it kind of just spun from there. And I don't really think they don't match. Obviously, I try. Now they have like their own characterization and voicing that I do, and I'll typically have the same type of voicing for characters, except for when it comes to Izuku. Sometimes he changes up a bit. Like in fics like Verdant Revolution, his voicing is going to be totally different than in a fic like State of Mind, right? State of Mind, Izuku's going to be like depressed and he's going to be younger. In Verdant Revolution, he's characterized as much older. So, you know, the voicing is going to depend on who their character is within it as well. So that changes to some degree. But I kind of visualize a box for like my four main voices. So when I'm speaking, it's like I also am visualizing where I'm at in this square. And again, don't take this with like a grain of salt. But in my square voice box, I've got Mike and Aizawa, and then I've got Izuku, and then I've got Shinso. And so I've got Izuku and Shinso on this side, one at a higher pitch, one at a lower pitch. And then I've got Mike on this side and also Aizawa on this side. Again, high pitch, low pitch. And where I'm at with talking and such, how I kind of frame my voice to get into those ranges depends on that visualization for me, I think, at this point too. I also will say lines and things and try to get into like a frame of mind for when I'm doing a scene with a couple different characters talking. It's kind of fun going back and forth between characters that are having dialogue. Like Aizawa and Izuku go back and forth a lot, and the ranges between them are very different. So it's kind of fun to see them go back and forth in a scene. I do really like, though, like I said, Shigaraki and Nezu, but I don't really visualize too much for them. I kind of just started winging it. And Shigaraki is more breathy and like scratchy, and then Nezu is just high-pitched craziness. So again, I think that there's a really fun aspect of trying to do it on your own and come up with ideas for it. So it can be a really cool thing. Now when I read fanfics in My Hero Academia's fandom, I am reading them kind of in the own voicing that I do for them, which is kind of cool. Another question about favorites was my favorite podfic that I've done. I'm not going to pick one. That's crazy. Like, there's so many. But when I think of favorite podfics and I think of ones that are completed and ones that kind of stood out to me that I really enjoyed doing, whether it was for different components or not, the first one I would mention would be like UA Survival Guide, which, exciting news, that's being rewritten and edited to some degree. So as those chapters get edited and they get further along with that process, I do plan to re-record that one. So I'm excited to give it another shot. I also really liked doing the podfic of The Itch. It had such a dark tone to it. It was only 5 chapters, but when I read that fic, it just left a lasting impression. So getting the chance to create that vibe of eeriness to it, and you know, when you listen to it or when you read it, kind of you get an itch from it just because of how it was done. So I loved that fic overall. Throw a chair through a window and call it a day was another one that I would reference as one that I really enjoyed to podfic. It was just so much fun. It took so long to do, not just because of the length of the chapters, but also because I had to stop. I was laughing so much. And then also, When Realities Collide, such a cool one. It was 13 chapters, and I love Dadzawa, and so the components that came out in that one too was just a really good podfic I enjoyed doing. Swallow the Stars I really liked. It was a longer one, and it was Shindeku and really cool components with Izuku when it comes to, you know, Dadzawa and being adopted in, and he doesn't actually have a quirk, but what else is going on? So that was really cool. I really liked Prodigal. Prodigal, though, makes me cry. So I got emotional while doing that one, but to podfic something and create that kind of emotional depth was a fun challenge too. And the last one I'll put that's still ongoing is Deku Dio, because that is such a cool one. I don't know medical terminology super well, but I've tried to get the voicings right and those types of things. And it's such a cool one. I like the fact that Aizawa is high in scenes and he's, you know, doing musical numbers and all this crazy nonsense, but also there's really good depth to it as well. So it's funny and also really, really has good characterization, and Izuku in the medical field, so really good fic. Now, as for the angstiest fic I've ever read, this is kind of tough. Now, I will mention, right, I've talked about Prodigal. Prodigal never fails to make me tear up in some aspect, especially in the earlier chapters when Izuku's leaving. So, but the one that came to mind when I got asked this question was the fic You Never Asked. It was the first untagged major character death that I had to experience. It was rough. Now, when I tell you that that fic broke my heart and soul, now, don't let me turn you away from that fic, though, because the author did an incredible job. Like, amazing writing, great tropes, awesome characterization, really good job with it, right? I have a lot of respect for authors that can write major character death in such an incredible way. Holy crap, that scared the heck out of me when I first read it. I just wasn't prepared, and I was an emotional wreck from it. So it's a good fic for me. I like to go back and reread it, not super often, but whenever I'm in need of like an emotional response, or I need to cry, or I need to feel something. So that's a really good one. Now, as far as my fandoms that I'm involved in, I have a decent list of them. I will list some of the really big ones that I enjoy, ones that I'm a part of. Of course, y'all know I like Hunter x Hunter at this point, since I already did a podfic pertaining to it. Always really liked Hunter x Hunter. Huge fan of those shonen fandoms. So that should kind of give you an idea where some of this is going. Now, I do really like Stranger Things, so I'm a part of that fandom as well. I do ship Steady, and I like Assassination Classroom. I got actually the whole manga sitting back on that shelf, so I gotta reread that at some point. I enjoy Nagisa and Karma pairings too. I really like the depth of characterizations there also. Then I really like Haikyuu, but I'm new to that fandom, so I haven't even really watched the whole anime or read the whole manga, so I'm hoping to get a chance and find some time to get to do that. But I've started reading Atsuhina fics, so that's been really good so far. Harry Potter is probably my biggest one after My Hero Academia. I've been a Harry Potter fan since I was a child. And honestly, I don't think I could really list them in any particular order. I just really, really enjoy them. They have a lot of really good components to Harry Potter, different tropes and pairings that I enjoy. For instance, I really like Severitas, which is like Snape as a mentor or a parent to Harry, especially when there's a reveal of like abuse and remorse there, and just a lot of really good depth of character there too. I like Snape redemption in that aspect. I really like Drary Fix and Harco, whichever ship name you prefer for them, and I like the parallels that come from that. Yeah, I think there's some really good ones. Speaking of parallels, I'm a Tomari or Soul Seeker fan as well. I really like those types of fics, especially when they contain time travel. And again, you get those parallels, you get literal sharing of souls going on. So there's some good depth there as well. I do like Dramione fics. I was introduced to fan fiction initially because of Manacled. So that was the first fanfic I ever really read, and just kind of spun from there. So I do read Dramione fics from time to time, but again, I have a preference more towards like Drary fics and those types of pairings. But I still will read them. And I really like George paired up with Harry because I like the post-war redemption, salvation, recovery fix where, George is recovering from a loss and Harry's recovering from the end of the war and ending Voldemort and all the other things that come from the end of a war like that. So those types of recovery fix with that type of pairing are usually enjoyable too. Again, though, I'm a multi-shipper. I'll read just about anything. So I like Merlin. It's a huge one for me. I like Merthyr. I do ship Merlin and Arthur. I also really like Naruto. Naruto was the first anime I ever really fully watched. I got exposed to some anime when I was younger, but when I mean sit down and actually watch an anime and watch it start to finish, that was Naruto. I enjoy Naruto paired up with Gaara. Again, those parallels. They're both Jinchuriki. I really like Naruto and Shikamaru because I feel like Shikamaru is a solid one and has been there from like the start. And then also Sasuke and Naruto and Kakashi and Iruka. There's a lot of really cool depth to Naruto in general, so when I find good fanfics in there, but a lot of them are older, so I'm trying to find like new ones. Just not as much content, I think, as there used to be. And then I also like Marvel. specifically if Tony is raising Peter Parker or is Peter Parker's adoptive parent in some aspect, or, you know, in any capacity, a parental figure. I really like Peter Parker centric fics, and that's the majority of what I'll read. And then also Supernatural. I'm a huge fan of Destiel. Now, before I jump into some of the last questions here, I just want to bring attention to my cat Storm, because people have asked, can we meet your cat? Do you have a cat? Things about her. She does wear a collar, so in earlier fics, I would leave it on for her, and she would like appear in the background of some of them. I just didn't always catch her on the audio. So now we take it off every time that I go to record something. But she's very loud and obnoxious. She's actually being very quiet right now, and that's unusual for her. So this is Storm. Now I'm going to make her get down because she'll climb all over me and then she won't let me get back to this. But as far as, see, there you go. There's a prime example. So if you hear that popping up in any of the podfics I've done in the past, especially earlier ones, then that's just her you're spotting. As for the fics that I'm currently reading, I've been doing a reread of Locked in Digital by Rogue Druid. Really like that one a lot. It's got some cool video game components to it, which I've always enjoyed. I have been reading The Heir to the House of Prince, which is a Knot Theodore Knott and Harry Potter fic. I also really like that pairing, and I didn't mention it, so that's a good one. And it's also Severitas, so I enjoy that a lot. Been reading the fic Ampersand, which is a Haikyuu fic, and it's Atsuhina, so I like that one too. And then I've also been reading Equals in Life, Partners in Death. I read that one not too long ago, which is Tom Mary and Soul Seeker. I really like Trials and Revelations, which is a Drarry Harry Potter fic, and I read that one again not too long ago as well. Same with Namesake Necklace, which is Severitas, and that's a de-aged Harry fic. So again, some of those similar tropes that I enjoy kind of showing up. And the last one, which is one that I've just been approved podfic, and I'm really excited because it means that this will be another one I can branch out into as a new fandom that I didn't mention before because I was excited, is Cat's Eyes by Malamari. I'm hoping I pronounced that right. It's an Alice in Borderland fic, and I'm a huge fan of Alice in Borderland. I am so ready for season 3, so those of you who know what I'm talking about, props to you. It does have an anime adaptation that was done initially. It's based off of a manga. I've started to read that as well, but I really like the live-action adaptation of it, and I'm hoping for season 3 of that here soon. But anyways, this fic is Chisha and Arisu, so I'm really excited to podfic a fic of that caliber with that pairing. So that'll be coming soon, just as kind of like an announcement. I hope that this answered a good bit of questions for you all today. I really have fun doing these. I think it's really enjoyable and it's interesting. It's a little bit different putting my face on a screen versus in a podfic where you just have to hear my voice narrating. So I enjoyed this. If you have more questions in the future, I might do another one of these if I feel like it's helpful or a good idea. So let me know if you'd like to hear more. I will just give some updates on things. For those of you who have been waiting on updates on Innocent Until Proven Guilty, as well as Misinterpreted Dreams, the fanfics that I had started writing, I am still doing those. They are not abandoned or on hiatus, really. I am planning to hopefully have a new chapter of each of those before the end of this year. I want to get more regular with the updates, but like I said, full-time job, so it's kind of hard sometimes for me to find time for both the podfics and also doing the fan fiction aspect. So more on the line of those fanfics that I'm writing, I do intend to down the line actually podfic those, so I just want to wait until they're either near complete or completed before I would start that. But yeah, some people asked if I plan to do that as well. It would be great to get to a point where I'm podficking my own content. Just a few more things before I wrap this up today. I did want to point out, I know a lot of people have asked questions about fics that have come down in the past or that are no longer available. Questions like, where did this go? Why is this taken down? Is it coming back? And I typically will not respond to those questions. And there's a reason for that. Part of the reason is that I've already posted a list of potential reasons why a fic may come down on this site. And reasons exist like an author is no longer comfortable with it, I'm not happy with the quality, there was an issue with the videos themselves, you know, I needed to change things, I wanted to edit it or re-record. There's a multitude of reasons why. And the reason for not clarifying and specifying is that in case it is because an author is no longer comfortable with it, I don't want to see anybody going and giving backlash to authors because it has to come down. You know, I want it to more fall on me that this is my channel and it's no longer available. And if you're upset, I respect that. It's not going to necessarily change things to question it. So I just hope you can understand that if it's available and you can see it on this channel, it's available to listen to and to watch. And if not, it's because of one of those listed reasons. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that clarifies some things. I just want to make sure I'm putting protections out there for authors to feel comfortable stating down the line if they're not okay with their fic being posted any longer, right? So if they change their mind at any point, I want them to feel like they can come and ask. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. If you're looking for information, I hope that what I'm about to tell you may help. I typically post things in the community page. So if you're looking for updates, if you're looking for planned podfics, if you're looking for when I'm taking breaks or things like that, most of that information will appear in that community page. I do have a Discord as well. So if you're looking to make recommendations somewhere or just chat or be involved in the community more, you can join my Discord as well. The link to that is in the bio for this channel. Same thing goes for any other platforms that I appear on, like TikTok or on AO3. If you're looking for either handles or information about those platforms, you can find that in the channel bio as well. And also, I've started doing merch. So if you're looking for merch or ways to support in some way, that's also in the channel bio. So those are the 2 or 3 big places. Either my Discord server, the channel bio, or the community page are places where you'll find the most information. So checking those might help. I hope that the information and stuff you got from this was helpful in some way, that I answered some questions, that you all enjoyed this. I really can't thank you all enough for the support that you all have given me on this channel so far, and I'm hoping that that support remains because this has been such an incredible journey. I never would have found myself on had I not just had a crazy weekend of boredom and decided, hey, I really like this fanfic. I'm going to make a podfic out of it. Those of you who have been here from the start and have remained, I have so much love and appreciation for that kind of support. If people didn't subscribe like right away out the gate, I don't know if I would have kept going with it. So knowing that people had an interest and that you all have stayed, also that more people are gaining interest and that people are sticking around and such, it really makes me feel happy that this is reaching people, that people enjoy it. I like the fact that I can create these podfics and people that maybe struggle with sitting down and reading and taking the time, or they just really need podfics for one reason or another, have been able to gain some accessibility this way. So thank you again, because we've now reached 15,000 subscribers as of the day that I'm doing this. I'm really grateful and excited about it. So thank you. Thank you all so much for listening.